to think of the security of these tools. So the introduction of these tools, the ICT tools, also we need to take serious on a cyber threats. So some common cyber threats in maritime operation are as follows. That is ransomware attack on the port's databases, sometimes GPS spoofing, data breaches, and the system shutdowns. So these are some common attacks or some common cyber. In the year 2017, there was one attack that was not pay attack on the massive disruption of global shipping. And if you go through the net pay, this was an attack mostly is focusing on disrupting the, disturbing the softwares, especially in Microsoft from the year 2016. So this attack also happened in maritime operations. In the year 2021, in the South Africa, ports faced the weak and the ransomware disruptions. But in the year 2024, coordinated attack disrupted in cargo globally. But in the few months ago, in the 2025, also it happens in GPS jamming near the Gulf of Oman, and it impacted around some vessels. So you can see the effect or how these ICT tools or resources are being attacked by the cyber threats. Then, in our paper, actually what we are focusing is in Tanzania also we have adopted these ICT tools in running our maritime operation. But we did not see the specific law that's governing how can we guide or how can we make these tools out from the attack. We have a general laws in Tanzania, ICT laws, but we did not, our gap was actually there's no specific law that is governing these tools that we were making. So although no reported cyber threats existed in Tanzania up to now, the Tanzanian maritime sector increasing relies on digital system, yet current laws lack the clear cyber security mandates. And the IMO argues to integrate the cyber risk into safety management system. Also, port vessels faces risk like GPS spoofing, ransomware, and database breaches. So, in this paper, the methodology that has been used is doctoral legal analysis of Tanzania status and international treaties, empirical law review on reported maritime cyber incidents. Now, our results in discussion. Actually, we went through the Cybercrime Act of 2025, and in this law was general ICT law, but also the Port Act and Shipping Agencies Act. It lacks some explicit cybersecurity mandates. And also another thing is in Merchant Shipping Act, it omits the cyber risk in vessel operation. So our gaps identified two things. One is there is no classical of maritime ICT as a critical infrastructure. As I said before, we have these tools, we have these systems, but there is no specific ICT laws that is governing this infrastructure. But also there is no mandatory cyber auditing or incidents reported. In other countries, like one you have seen it before, they have reported, and one of the countries, South Africa, also has reported on a cyber attack, but in Tanzania there is no incidents that has been reported. Maybe it has not happened, but we have not reported any incidents on the ICT. So, we have some benchmarking against international standard. That's IMO has some requirements, and we want to see the Tanzanian status and assessment also. So, one of the IMO requirements is laws tailored to ports and shipboards in ICT system. So the IMO, it requires that every ICT systems that are used in the ports, there should be some laws that are governing them. But in Tanzania, there is no dedicated maritime law, cyber law, or reference professional. So, which means in Tanzania, as per assessment, that means we are misaligned with the IMO. Also, the IMO say that it's mandatory to integrate for cyber risk into SMEs. But in Tanzania, no such legal mandate in Tanzania Maritime Authority, that is TMA, that is regulating, of which also we are misaligned with the IMO. Also, in National Authority Oversight of TPA, compliance with the IMO cyber guidelines. Also, TPA TASAC lacks a dedicated cyber compliance enforcement, and the assessment on that is cyber partially is aligned. Another thing that is required by IMO in maritime operation regarding the ICT is inclusion of critical infrastructure and sector-specific reliance plan. In Tanzania status, there is a strategy existing in 2021 to 26, but is binding and the maritime is not prioritized. So, which means as assessment in Tanzania, if you assess with the IMO, that is weak alignment. So, IMO cyber risk guidelines say that it's mandatory to integrate of cyber security in safety management system, and the cyber drills reported and the certification enforcement, that is in USA, Singapore, which means here in USA they are saying that for every ICT tools that is being used in maritime, they have to get some certification. So to say this ICT tools or this tool has been made for the maritime operation, the system should get a certification from the authority. But also in Japan, they have prepared a specific sector for regulating the maritime operation in ICT. So, legal and institution gap. As I said, the gap is there is no maritime specific cybersecurity law, and the impact is regulatory inaction on port cyber hygiene. And also another identified gap is no liability or enforcement framework for the resilience of operations. So there is no deterrence for insecured parties. But also another gap that we noted, there is no mandatory incidents reported up to now. So which means there is no data for learning or national response condition. Because if you report the incidents, which means you'll be learning from the incidents and you will know how to rescue from that incident. But up to now, there is no exactly data reported for learning or for the national response. So another gap is skill and resource limitation at the port agents. And the impact is no capacity for digital forensic or threat hunting. Another gap identified is the absence of structured cyber training for maritime stakeholders. And the impact of which is heightening the risk of human error and phishing breaches. So there are some recommendations here. One of the recommendations is enact a maritime security law. As we said before, there is so many ICT laws, but we need to have a specific maritime cyber security law. And another recommendation is demonstrate the IMO resolution. As I say that there are so many IMO, that is International Maritime Operation Resolution, that has been listed. So also we need to comply on it. But a mandate, ISO, cyber security certification. So for any system that the ICT people or the programmers that they are making, we should have a certification to certify this system can be used for the maritime operations. And also to establish a maritime specific set and incident reporting mechanism. So for any incidents that has occurred, we should have a specific platform for reporting these incidents, and in the future we can learn how it happened and how to rescue from it. But also classifying maritime ICT system as a critical infrastructure. Another recommendation is to establish an inter-agency task force for maritime cyber governance and the public-private trade sharing platform. And finally, I can conclude by saying that adopting international standard, strengthening institutions, and establishing maritime-focused policies are essential for protecting the ports and the vessels operation from the cyber threats. Thank you very much.
We thank you very much, Mr. Kitomari, and you bring us to a very specific issue in the transport sector, safety aspect, and the specific interventions, as you suggested. Would you join me in applauding again Mr. Kitomari's presentation? I have not received the questions as directed by the organizers that we might have a discussion, but that discussion would be based on questions forwarded to the speakers and brought to me. I have not seen this, but I might, you already have. Okay, the speakers have the questions. Now, I would like to ask the organizers whether the fourth presentation, which is online, that the presenter is available. Oh, so he's available. And Professor Tillman Gabriel, can you hear us? Oh, I can see you on the screen. Can you hear me? Do you hear me? We have lost communication a little bit.
Can you hear me now?
You can hear me now.
I can hear you now. I didn't hear you before.
Oh, thank you. We would like to apologize to the fact that you probably were supposed to come in much earlier, but I believe you have been following the circumstances, but we are glad that you're online and you're ready to present your paper, which we are anxiously waiting to hear.
Good, and you can hear me well?
Yes, we can.
And you can see my screen full gloss.
Yes, but then I would like to bring your profile before the audience. Professor Tillman Gabriel is a retired captain, has very deep expertise in aviation, blending practical industry experience with academic knowledge. His 40-year management experience bridges theory and practice, enhancing and mentoring leadership in all aviation sectors. Professor Gabriel's research and insights contribute significantly to professional development and knowledge sharing. His research concentrates on African aviation, sustainability, and the artificial intelligence, mentoring and supporting the future leadership in aviation, bridging vocational and academic education. That is what he does. We are very glad to welcome you, and please bring your presentation. You will have 15 minutes of presenting, and following that, the 4 presenters in this session, including you, will respond to questions as they would be presented. Do you continue to hear us?
I can, yes, thank you.
So, Karibu, welcome.
Hello.
Thank you.
Karibu. Hello, Tanzania. Habari, Tanzania. Thank you, Patrick, for introducing me so nicely. And this is a wonderful conference here at NIT in Dar es Salaam. And I'm very happy and honored to be with you. Not in person, unfortunately, but I think we will meet in September. And hopefully I can meet a lot of you then there at NIT. Dear colleagues, dignitaries, and students, I want to talk about CLJ. There are about hundreds of species, and we usually talk about seagrass or seaweed. As you can see from these pictures, there's the beautiful beach of Tanzania on the top, and then the not so beautiful beach, not in Tanzania, but in Barbados, in the Caribbean, and I sail in France, and we have similar beaches there, like the bottom picture. They should be like the one above, but they look like the one below. Now, why do I bring this here during this conference? Patrick has already introduced most of that, what I just said. I'm an older guy. I started as a pilot, turned to instruction, love to do this still today, and then management, initially all around pilots, fleets, training, and later I started several airlines, also in your region, and aviation companies around the world. But my real passion is to research, find solutions, and help others to learn, progress in their careers, and leave a mark, add value, and live a happy life. For many years, I've been working in and around Africa now, which I believe is left behind in aviation. 1.4 billion Africans don't have a well-served aviation network. 1/4 of mankind has only about 2% of the aviation industry. This is why I think the SATEM, the Single African Air Transport Market, the initiative of the African Union, very much supported by ICAO and others, is so important for Africa, and also, of course, the African Free Trade Zone also pushed in the 2063 strategy of the African Union. Open up Africa, get a continental attitude going in aviation. A Routledge book is about finished about Open Sky Africa, hopefully published by the end of this year. But I do have a new book out, Airline Customer Experience, where I wrote a chapter on artificial intelligence in aviation. But today I want to talk about aircraft fuel, more specifically producing it out of biomass. A master student of mine, Ahmed Uluodo, researched and wrote his dissertation about sustainable aviation fuel, and soon found the worldwide exploding resource of seaweed, mainly sargassum, floating around by tides and drifts. And we wrote a paper on it for this conference and as part of the SATEM book coming up. More importantly, the first African Aviation Aerospace University in Abuja, which I had the pleasure of launching, just received approval to start the African Center for Climate Change and Aviation Decarbonization, which will research on reducing CO2 emissions from fossil fuels and look specifically after the opportunities using sea algae for sustainable aviation fuel or SAF production. So let's talk about algae and about Tanzania and the difference between the good algae, mostly microalgae, and the overgrowth of macroalgae, mainly sargassum and kelp. How can you make SAF, sustainable aviation fuel, out of macroalgae, and what opportunities result from it as the world has a plan? By 2050, most of the aviation fuel, more than 65%, shall be produced out of biomaterials, thus reducing our CO2 emission footprint. And it is started today, this year, 2025, where 2% of all aviation fuel are supposed to be from SAF. The regulations are set and enforced for the first time this year. Also for Africa, for Tanzania. But we do not have one single SAF refinery in Africa. Hold on. But we do have widespread agriculture in Tanzania, Zanzibar, and other East African countries. Here in East Africa, we have mainly the good guys, microalgae, commonly called seagrass, which is agar-farmed on the beaches and used for many products, soaps, agar-agar, oils, my favorite, as sell it in many kitchens. Seagrass species support marine biodiversity by providing habitat and food for numerous aquatic organisms. Our focus lies on the free-floating green macroalgae, mainly sargassum. It has become a major disturbance in the marine world, visible on beautiful white beaches to all tourists, but affecting coral reefs, a variety of marine vegetation, and significantly the fishermen and all ocean vessels. The beach cast of sargassum is the visible, smelly issue. The environmental disturbance is all around in our oceans, caused by global warming and the pollution of our oceans. Seaweed is not the best feedstock for aviation fuel, but it is a nuisance, a danger to the marine world, and widely available. There are different processes to win biogas and turn into SAF. You need about 14 to 20 tons of seaweed for the production of 1 ton of fuel. As the process needs energy, heat, and pressure, the solar energy in the tropics and the wind and tidal energy from the ocean are supporting a cost and environmentally efficient production of SAF. The greatest advantage of seaweed over other feedstock is the availability and cost-free availability. It is not advisable to use human food stock like palm oil, sugar cane, and so on as feedstock for SAF, although the non-eatable waste could also be used in a seaweed plant. How long and how much seaweed we will have is a question to be researched further. It came upon us a few years ago, growing continuously, but is this a continuing issue? There are two ways to get SAF, either via an ethanol transit or via the hydrothermal pressure to produce oil, both proven productions with other biomaterials. The refineries are expensive, of course. It's a lot of technology, and of course the mass production needs significant industry measures here, but they're less expensive than the fossil fuel or the the standard refineries for crude oil, and are maybe also, when produced in several numbers, getting cheaper and more towards the 700 million than the 1 billion. But it is an expensive investment. However, it is, of course, a budgetary calculation on how you make use of this investment. The current price of the fossil fuel kerosene is about $690 per metric ton. That's what airlines pay today, on average in the world.
Want you to hear us? Organizers, we have lost the connection. Hello, Prof, can you hear us? Organizers, are you working on this? He has left. So we continue with him not having completed it because we have nothing to do, I think. Ametalk online kabisa. Okay. Members, I think we have lost contact with the professor. Certainly he was close to winding his presentation. When he comes back, I think we shall, if there would be questions directed to him, ask him also to respond to the questions that would have been given. We have a few minutes, certainly over and above what would have been the ending of this session, but certainly some delays during the day would give us a few minutes to hear responses from questions that have been directed to the speakers. And maybe I just wanted to get to understand. Professor, you have several questions directed to you? You have? Oh, sorry, you don't have a mic there. But just indicate to me. Unayo maswali kadhaa. And you have questions directed to you? No. You have, okay, so we have questions so far directed to Professor Kando, so I would bring him to respond to the, would mention what the question was and respond accordingly. Can you use about 7 or so minutes for that?
Thank you, Chair. So if you look online, there are a couple of questions that are directed to me. One question is asking, hello, Professor Sando. What do you think can be done to eliminate the inefficiency that you mentioned regarding city public transport? So I think the question here is the inefficiencies for the BRT. So these are inefficiencies that we have observed. They stem from different sources. Some of them are mechanical issues, and some of them are just operational issues. So when it comes to operational issues, BRT by its nature, the BRT system is not supposed to have a headway between buses of more than 15 minutes. So once you have a headway of more than 15 minutes, that's in public transportation is termed as a scheduled bus system. So BRT, typically 10 to 15 minutes, that's the maximum. Now, when this system started around 2018, The Gerezani and Posta to Kimara route did very well as far as the operation is concerned. We only had an issue with the Kinondoni part that couldn't maintain that 15-minute threshold. So as far as inefficiencies are concerned, what happened is I think they started with like 120, 130 buses, but somewhere along the road there were some floods. If you remember, there was some flooding, and about 30 buses were grounded. At the same time, it's required for the BRT system, especially the one that we're running here in Dar es Salaam, the tire threads, they're supposed to have a certain threshold. So the depth, once it goes below a certain threshold, then that bus has to be grounded. So I remember 2019, we were working with DIT on a fellowship, and we looked at the system. There were more than 20 buses that were grounded just because the tires, they didn't have enough thread. So can you imagine grounding buses that are highly needed just because the tires don't have enough thread for the friction that is required to run that system? So you can see that these inefficiencies, sometimes they come from negligence and the fact that we have a system where that is the government agency that is supposed to oversee the system, but that is not the one that is running the buses. We have a vendor, UDAT, who is running the buses. So there are a few things that can be done to eliminate some of these inefficiencies. Number one, we can have what we call predictive maintenance. Okay, and predictive maintenance is you try to predict what would happen after a certain mileage so that you can treat the problem before it becomes major. These are nothing but, buses are nothing but mechanical machine, only that they run on our roads and they carry people. So that's number one. But number two, we already know that these buses, on average, the BRT bus runs about 300 kilometers per day. So from morning all the way to evening, about 300 kilometers per day. So we know, like, how long is it going to run before we need new tires? How long is it supposed to run before we need it to be to change oil and so forth? So most of these things are there. So if we use data and we do good recording and have a good system, we should be able to actually tackle some of these problems before they happen. And sometimes, because we have a vendor who is trying to make profit, they may delay some of the necessary maintenance activities that are supposed to happen. Sometimes outsourcing some of these services. For example, NIT can be an arm that works to collect the data and to help UDAT to know when to do what, so that it's not only themselves. Because if it's only themselves, at one time they may decide just to delay because of cost purposes. But if they have someone else who is doing that for them, that will make it hard for them to skip some of the necessary things that they're supposed to do. I would say these inefficiencies have largely contributed to a poor service that we are receiving today. I've already said, if the BRT system can perform the way it's supposed to perform, there will be a lot of people who live along those routes that BRT system is going to be using, especially for now the Kimara route, who will opt to use the BRT system. If you know that you're always going to get the seat, if you know that it's always going to be on time, if you know that you're not going to be delayed more than 10 minutes, if you have that reliability, then you are more likely to use that system. And they can even have some of the premium services where somebody subscribes and pays for the entire month, and they're assured if you go to Kimara and you're going to Posta for work, your bus will be there and you'll have your seat, you'll have internet in it and so forth, and people will be willing to pay even more. A good example is Kigamboni. So the government operates this ferry and they charge 200 shillings per person. Azam operates their ferry and they're charging 500 shillings But when people go there, everybody wants to go to Azam and pay 500, most people. And that, if you pay 500 T shillings to get to the Azam ferry, 3 minutes, every day you go, it's 3 minutes, you're out. 3 minutes, you're on the other side. But if you use the government system, it takes longer. So the BRT, if it's efficient, we're going to move a lot of people from using their personal automobiles and using this transit. We've seen it with the SGR, people moving from using flights, driving their own personal cars, using buses to go to Dodoma and Morogoro. I think it can happen with the BRT, and not only I think, it needs to happen. Otherwise, there's no way we can control this congestion that we have in the city. So that was question number one. I think another question I have is, let me read the next question. The next question I have is from Professor Kugizire, and he's asking, do you have any suggestion on how research funding challenge can be addressed using lessons from developed countries? This question is very loaded. If you think about the system here in Tanzania, higher learning institutions are largely used for consultancy purposes. So the government agencies and other private institutions will give projects to higher learning institutions in what they call the bureaus, the consultancy bureaus that they formed to do consulting work. While that one is good and it brings money to these institutions need to do research. Most of these faculty members, these academic staff, they don't get promoted by doing consultancy. Promotion comes from them doing research and writing papers and presenting in conferences, graduating thesis and dissertation students. And I think somehow we need to devise a way that the government can funnel some of the issues that don't have to go through consultancy, can be addressed by research, so that there can be enough research dollars to address some of these issues, but at the same time, help develop the future workforce. The students who will go through those research projects will benefit more because they'll be the ones who will come and join the workforce in the future. So that's one way. I understand that there's money that is sent to COSTECH that helps as far as research is concerned. I understand that Professor Mkenda started a program where, and I think they started with those who are in the fields of medicine. So if you publish a paper in a certain list of journals that they listed, I think he said they will give a professor 50 million T shillings, 50 million for publishing in those journals. But that has not expanded to all the fields. But there need to be a way that these institutions can benefit, and also agencies such as TANROADS, TARURA, and so forth. There are some of the issues that they could let be solved through research instead of consultancy, so that it can help fund some students to do a master's and PhD programs as well. I'll end that there for now, please.
No, that was a very elaborate response. I think there are things to pick from there. And with the answers provided by the professor, and with the knowledge that there hasn't been any questions directed to the other presenters, and our loss of communication with the presenter was winding up, I would like to thank the presenters for very interesting and very informative and very rich presentations. And I would like you to join me in applauding the presenters, all the presenters, now as we wind this second session. Karibuni tuwape makofi. And with that note, I would like, I think, on behalf of the presenters, to thank the organizers for the opportunity that we have had for this session. Asante sana.
NIT at 50. Kazi iendelee. Niombe sasa nimkaribishe rapporteur ili aweze kutupa summary of the day, tuweze kuhitimisha siku ya kwanza. Nikiwa naamini rapporteur yuko tayari, karibu rapporteur hapa mbele tuweze kupata summary leo. Nitoe matangazo mawili ya kufungia siku. Kwanza, kama tumeona ratiba zetu vizuri, tunaanza siku kesho asubuhi saa 2:30 mpaka saa 3:30 kutakuwa kuna chai. Kwa hiyo mimi nitatarajia saa 3 kamili tuanze kujiongea hapa ukumbini, ili saa 3:30 on dot Professor Tobias Sando, session chair kwenye session itakayofuata, aweze kuanza session yake. Lakini nirudie tangazo ambalo nililitoa mapema kwamba kwa sisi ambao tumekuja lakini asubuhi tulikuwa tuna haraka wa kuruhusu ratiba ya uzinduzi ianze, kwa hiyo hatukumalizia zoezi la registration pamoja na malipo. Naomba tufanye hivyo ili tuweze kwenda sambamba. I will repeat my announcements in English for the sake of our foreign delegates. We are now going on to the recap of the day, which will be presented by the rapporteur. But I also made an announcement that we shall commence our program tomorrow at 9:30, but we shall reconvene from around 8:30 to 9:30 with breakfast. 9:30 sharp, we shall commence the first session for day 2, which is going to look onto transport and logistics management, which will be chaired by Professor Tobias Sando. This will commence at exactly 9:30. Saa 3:30 juu ya alama tutaanza the presentations. But again, for those of us who have not completed the registration and the payment session or processes, you're urged to do so today before we leave, so that we are all at par as we do day 2 tomorrow. Without further ado, karibu sana rapporteur, and take us through the session, how the day went today. Karibu sana.
Thank you, floor manager. Technical team, can you please project the presentation? Yes. Thank you very much. It is my honor and pleasure to take this opportunity, at least to take you through what has transpired since morning. And I'm grateful that everybody is still around, because at this odd hour, most of the people tend to go out. So this is the recap of the first day, and tomorrow as well we shall do the recap of the World Conference, bringing up even the resolutions. So the theme of this conference is harnessing innovative and sustainable transport systems for enhanced mobility and safety. We started with opening ceremony. Next slide, please. The opening ceremony, we started with registration outside there, where there was also exhibition. And we had the privilege of having a guest of honor, who is the Minister for Transport, Professor Makame Nyambarawa, who officiated the event. We started with the welcoming remarks from the rector, Dr. Prosper Mgaya, and then Dr. Mgaya invited Dr. Mahona on behalf of the sponsors of this event, at least to give a word. So Dr. Mgaya spoke of the accreditation which has been done, establishing an accreditation of the Center of Excellency, which is at NIT currently. The center is recognized by European Aviation Safety Agency, which means our pilot also can be accredited at the center. Next slide, please. In 50 years, we heard that the institute actually started with only 78 students. As we speak today, the institute is having more than 17,000 students with programs which are cutting across all 5 modes of transport. The institute has acquired almost 60 acres from Kia, whereby they will start to construction of the training center for aviation and pilots. There is a land also in Lindi for maritime activities. And now the institute has started officially the training of the pilots. And as we speak, there are 10 students who are undergoing this training. Next slide, please. Then there was an opportunity of Dr. Mbamba to welcome the guest of honor. Dr. Mbamba is the chair of the Governing Council of NIT. Then we had a speech from the guest of honor, whereby he thanked NIT for officially inviting him to officiate this event. And then he talked of the government commitment to offer almost 50 billion for the construction of the center and the inauguration. And hopefully during these events of commemorating 50 years of NIT, the center will be inaugurated. And at the same time, he acknowledged the efforts which is made by NIT in trying to transform and support the transport sector in the country. Next, please. Also, he talked of inauguration of the 50 years anniversary and establishment of, he inaugurated the establishment and actually the events which are coming through during this 50 years anniversary of NIT. Thereafter, there was a photo session whereby different groups had the opportunity to take a group photo with the guest of honor. Next, please. Then we came to the technical session after the opening ceremony, whereby we had presentations. In these technical sections, we had 2 key speakers, keynote speakers. One is the director of infrastructure from TANROADS, and the other was Professor Jing from China, from the University of China. Next. And there were 3 also technical papers which were presented. The one was presented by Kagoma, and the other one, the one which was presented by Kagoma is direct current microgrid stable region establishment for in-motion charging trolleybus transport. And this was by Kagoma. The other paper which was presented is the challenges and opportunities of train automation in open network. This one presented by Patrick Urasa, and analysis of the state of infrastructure in Africa for the purpose of developing a unified transport system. This was an online presentation from Russia. Next, please. Next. Next, please. Yes. Then there was a session on transport safety for secure mobility, which was chaired by Professor Patrick Makungu. And in this session, there was one presentation from keynote speaker, who was Professor Sando from North Florida University. And this presentation was eye-opening, and it was talking about harnessing the power of partnership, showing how different organizations, providers, innovators can partner together for the benefit of the transport sector. Next. There were 4 technical presentations again, and this one was presented by Dr. David Stefano, Assessment of Airport Emergency Response Teams for Aircraft Incidents and Accidents in Tanzania. And then we went for lunch after that, and we came back with the 2 presentations: cyber threats in maritime operations, the inefficiency of ICT regulation in Tanzania, which was presented by Jackson Magege from NIT. And the last presentation was an evaluation of sustainable aviation fuel development pathways on the East African coast. This was presented by the Professor Gabriel online. And that was the last presentation which we had before I came up for the recap of the day. And those are the main things which transpired today in our conference. We hope tomorrow we shall be continuing with the sessions, and as we go, we shall be taking some of the important issues, and tomorrow I think it will be the busiest day, because at the end of the conference we have to come up with resolutions about the conference. So thank you very much again for your attention, and that marks the end of the recap for the day 1. Thank you very much.
Asante, let's give him a round of applause. Thank you very much. Tunashukuru sana rapporteur for the 3rd International Conference looking onto transport, logistics and management, for having captured very well what transpired kwa siku ya leo. Tunakushukuru sana. Matangazo ya kufungia siku, wrap up announcements. Number 1, Mr. Shirima sijui kwa wapi. Naomba simame Mr. Shirima. That's Mr. Shirima from a distance, labda uje hapa mbele. Mr. Shirima angependa kukutana na watu wote wanaotoka kwenye logistics background au operations. Kwa wale wote wanaofanya shughuli za logistics, eh? Did I capture that well? You would like to meet with all those working in the logistics arrangements, to meet with you